you see up here today, Jason Nickerson, our President and Chief Operating Officer, and then Lyndsey Payne, one of our associate advisors who's been with the firm for a little over a year now. So thank you both for taking part in the presentation today. Again, just a little bit about the Clemens Center and being one of the region's premier performing arts centers. And then about John G. Ullman Associates being founded in 1978. We are a registered investment advisor, registered federally with the Securities and Exchange Commission. And we offer a comprehensive model, and we like to say that we can be here for everything your money touches. So if you can think of any area in your financial life where you could need help or service, we're generally here to help you along that path. So like Craig mentioned, the rest of the series here, the remaining presentations of the Not Dead Yet series. Today we're covering Guiding My Retirement. On July 10th, we'll be back for Guiding My Legacy, Legacy and Estate Planning being the main topics covered there. And then on September 4th, we'll round things out with Living in the Digital Age, which will cover protecting your assets in the digital age, cybersecurity best practices. So we'll touch a little bit of everything in this series. And again, thank you to the Clemens Center for having us out. And again, just want to take a moment to meet our presenters today, Jason and Lyndsey, and thanks again for participating. And just a quick disclaimer we have to go over for our virtual and in-person registrants. The information discussed in this presentation is current as of the date noted and is for informational purposes only and does not intend to address the financial objectives, situation, or specific needs of any individual investor. Any information is for illustrative purposes only and is not intended to serve as investment tax or legal advice, since the availability and effectiveness of any strategy is dependent upon your individual facts and circumstances. Results will vary and no suggestion is made about how any specific solution or strategy will perform in reality. And now that the legal jargon is out of the way, before I turn things over to Jason, we will have an open Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. So jot down your questions. Feel free to hold those until the end. And for our online participants, we do ask that you keep your cameras off and your mics muted for the duration of the presentation, as it is being recorded. And if you would like to ask questions, we ask that you utilize the chat feature that you see on your screen. I will be monitoring that in the back and make sure that your questions are asked in the open Q&A session. So with that, I'll turn things over to Jason and Lyndsey.
I don't need that.
You need that. No.
All right. Well, thank you all again for coming today. I have to admit the title, I have a love-hate relationship with the title of the series, but I hope that you will attend the rest of the sessions because I think they're really going to be great. Because to me, Not Dead Yet, it sounds like a couple of things. One, it sounds like a great Netflix series. I don't know if it's something that you all would watch, but it's intriguing to me. Also, if you've been around me long enough, Not Dead Yet, most people, Lyndsey would attest to this, that my least favorite topic is talking about death and dying, right? That's boring and morbid and whatnot. And so when Ryan said, hey, no, we want you to do the retirement one, I said, absolutely, because I want to talk to you about how you should spend your money, right? That's more fun than talking about how you should leave it after you pass away. So show of hands quick before we get into this. How many are already retired or consider themselves already retired? Okay. How many are thinking you're really close to retirement? And how many came thinking they're going to see a Broadway show and now you're staring at me? It's too bad for you, because I grew up, my dad said, you have a face made for radio. So this is the closest I'm ever going to get to that stage out there. All right, can I retire? So this is a great question. And what we're going to bring to you today is we're going to bring to you the true anecdotal conversations we're having with our clients in various topic areas, okay? So you're going to get to see, at least at a high level, how we're addressing some of these questions, okay? Now, we have a great podcast out there called It Depends, or Well, It Depends, okay? And that title has come from many decades of us using that phrase when we get asked questions in forums like this, because we don't know all of your personal situations, right? I know some of you are retired now, but I wouldn't have guessed that walking in. I know some are thinking about it, and we know some maybe don't know why they're even here, and that's okay. All right, so can I retire? Well, this is a loaded question, right? I mean, the definition of retirement over the last decade has changed drastically, right? Because think of the prior generation, what retirement really meant to them. They worked really hard for a number of years, and retirement meant I'm not going to work anymore. I'm going to put my feet up, I'm going to vacation, I'm going to play golf, I'm going to take care of grandkids, travel, whatever that meant, right? But we're seeing this shift in what the retirement definition really is. And that is, I'm going to retire from what I just spent the last couple decades doing, and I'm going to go do something else. Okay, now some of that still is, I'm going to vacation and play golf and kick my feet up and so on, and more leisure, but it's an enhancement of time, freedom of time, right? So some of us are going to retire, but we want to keep busy. We just have adapted to this busy lifestyle, and we want to keep going. We want to keep our brains active, right? So retirement has really changed in definition. So when I get asked this question, can I retire? I don't look at a single thing. The answer is not even quantitative to begin anymore, right? As advisors, when people come in and see us, they want the math. Okay, well, you haven't run any numbers, but can I retire? My immediate answer is yes. The reason I can say that is because now today's definition of retirement is more about what the choices you make next. Okay, what are you going to do next? Again, prior generations, it was an accumulation of all the decisions that you had made prior to that point, and saying at this point in time, if this is what I have, can I live the next number of years like this? Okay. So now it's an evolving definition of can you retire, because what are the decisions you're going to make next? And it's not that the financial side, the quantitative side still doesn't play a key role. That's our foundation. But it's about managing decisions even more into the future than just a point in time. Okay? Everyone with me? Good. So where do we start then? Well, this is actually more of a psychology experiment to start with any more than it is quantitative, okay? We have to start wrapping our minds around the fact that we are going to live probably a third of our life in retirement, whatever we define that to be, okay? After our first retirement, let's say, or it's that traditional definition of retirement. How did we get there? Let's run a little math. If we expect to live to 80 years old, and we retire at age 60, that's 20 years of retirement. Okay, so already we're a quarter of the way there. Okay, so that's almost a third. Let's think about it a little bit differently. We enter adulthood in our early 20s at some point, right? We start jobs and we start working. And if we assume the same life expectancy where maybe we're going to live to 80 or mid 80s, okay, again, we're starting adulthood at 20s, we're going to live to 80 or beyond, we're going to retire at 60. That says that we're approaching 50% of our adult life living in retirement, okay? And if we live beyond 80, that you can see where the math comes in. So this is a psychology experiment first in can we wrap our minds around the fact that we could live a long life in retirement and prepare ourselves for that. And Lyndsey's going to go into a little more specifics. Once we kind of get around that part, the planning side of this is a lot of fun, right? This is the dreaming. What are we going to do with all this freedom? Okay. Are we going to, again, play golf? We're going to kick our feet up. We're going to travel. We're going to see our grandchildren. We're going to embark on a new career. Maybe it's not a profit-driven career, but something more meaningful or something to us, right? And as we get through that planning phase and we start approaching that retirement date, what we see in the psychology of retirees is a lot of anxiety, okay? The anxiety comes from the fact that we've gotten used to this steady stream paycheck. Week to week, month to month, we have income coming in. Now we're about to make this conversion to living not on a paycheck, but what we've managed to accumulate in benefits or assets, okay? And we've watched this over time where we have to make this conversion, and it's almost a double whammy conversion if you think about this, right? Because I'm used to bringing in money and I can live on that money, but some of that money is going to my savings and my investments, right? So now not only do I have to get over the fact that I'm no longer be bringing in that steady paycheck, I'm also no longer saving and adding to my investments. And that's the second hurdle we have to get over in retirement is we often hear, well, I want my assets managed so they'll continue to grow. I'm going to tell you that it's a lot harder to do that when you're spending. okay? Because there's two things you have to consider when you're spending down your assets. One, you're drawing down capital potentially over time. Two, that capital you're drawing down is not earning and compounding, which is a major, major financial force, okay? So we have to make these mental conversions and getting used to living a different way. But if you've done your planning well, you should start to feel comfortable, okay? Now, how else can we get the psychology and right and get us feeling comfortable? We start diving into logistics of retirement, okay? When we're walking up to that date, when you're ready to drop the keys on the desk and walk out, what are some of the things we've got to check off to make sure that we've got a good plan in place? This is how we start managing psychology, right? We all do it, okay? When times of stress, how many of us, show of hands, make a to-do list? No one? I'm the only one? Okay, I was gonna say, I can't be the only one that does this. Okay, so we're gonna do the same thing in retirement. As we're walking up to retirement, that anxiety continues to build. The paycheck's shutting off. I've got to convert to this other mindset of living off assets and pensions and Social Security. We're gonna make a checklist, as simple as that sounds. We're gonna get to the checklist, but I'm gonna let Lyndsey talk a little bit more about the psychological phases of retirement.
Like Jason reiterated, it is important financially to know whether you can retire or not. However, there are a lot of emotional aspects that come through with this chart of these 4 distinct phases that you may or may not encounter. Some of you may encounter one of them, maybe you encounter all 4. The first phase, the vacation phase, it is what it is. It's freedom, it's beaches, it's golf trips like he mentioned. And you go through that first year and it's you kind of lose a sense of a fixed routine of the things you're supposed to do throughout your day. And then eventually the boredom might sit in and you move on to the anxious phase. And when we feel lost, we feel lost. And that's when you start to want to think more about getting back into that routine. So you start the trial and error phase where you start trying different things. Maybe it's volunteering with a nonprofit, maybe it's picking up a part-time job, or maybe it's spending time with your grandkids and your family. And eventually we get to that last phase and we start reliving our retirement passions. We start doing the things that make us happy and find the different things that we can do with that. So it is my challenge to you to enjoy the vacation when it comes. Don't be afraid of the anxious times. Try as many things as you possibly can, and enjoy the retirement dream.
All right, that's well said. All right, let's make our checklist, because now we understand kind of the mental aspects that we're going through. And I'm sure you're all sitting there at this point saying, these are financial advisors. They're not, doctors of psychology or anything. But this really happens, right? And I said to you early on, we are here to walk you through the things that we're working with our clients on. And this is it. And I will tell you that I have a very strong belief that our financial well-being is second only to our mental and physical health. Okay, that's my belief, not everyone's belief. But this is why we talk about psychology, is because we get our clients into this retirement phase, and what we often find is we're meeting with them more. Okay, now why would we be meeting with them more after we've done all the planning and gotten them into retirement? Because they need that. Okay, they need the consultation that what's happening is the right thing. Okay, I'm not overspending. My assets are positioned correctly. Okay, they need the busyness. Okay, so having a good advisor by your side can help with that. Okay, as we said, as we walk up to that retirement date, we're ready to drop the keys on the boss's desk and happily wave goodbye to him or her and some of our colleagues. There are some things that we need to do. Now, this isn't totally comprehensive, right? So this we would be personalizing to you, okay? But these are the generic ones that tend to end up on everybody's checklist. First, and it's arguably if it's first, maybe it's second, we want to confirm retirement date and structure. Why is this important? Okay, is this truly we're walking out and we're doing nothing? Or is this a phase out? Is this a part-time work? Okay, and we need to know this because through the planning phase, a lot of times what we see is people say, plan on me not doing anything anymore, okay? But then what we find out is, well, now I'm actually going to work part-time because they don't want me to leave. Well, that's a really good feeling, right? We love it when people want us back. They don't want us to leave. But that can impact both positively your plan by providing extra cash flow, and we should know that. But it can also, we'll say negatively, impact your plan in the form of taxes, right? So if we didn't plan to have this extra stream of income, we just need to insert it in a plan. I will say this, don't throw things at me. Taxes aren't a bad thing, okay? Taxes means we made money, okay? So if we have the benefit of paying taxes, it means we made some money. Okay, so we want to make sure we understand the structure. Are we right out? Are we phasing out? The data is important because what does the company offer in terms of benefits? Some benefits are vested throughout the year, and we want to make sure you're getting all of those vested benefits throughout the year, okay? I'll take a very simple one. Some companies vest vacation time throughout the year, right? Well, let's say you're vested in earning that year's vacation halfway through the year. Well, then don't retire March 31st. See if you can make it to June 30th and pick up a little more vacation time, which is a compensating benefit, okay? So that's a very basic example. Number two, or maybe it's 1A, this is incredibly important, is health insurance. How are we being covered? Okay, some of this is age-based, some of it is the company you're retiring from, what benefits do they have? There's a marketplace out there that we can go into. There's Medicare, there's a lot of choices. We do not want a gap in coverage. Okay, that is incredibly important. We want to know that we're continuing our healthcare coverage, or we're jumping from one to the next and maybe even a little overlap, and that's okay. Our health can be unpredictable, right? And we don't want to be taking any chances with our health coverage. Employer retirement plans. We will have talked a lot about the use of employer benefit plans, retirement plans, throughout the planning process, but there's a few things you want to know, right? If you have a traditional pension plan, when are we starting that? When's the paperwork due, right? Because this is just, we're down to logistics. We knew it was coming, but if we weren't ready with the paperwork, it could take a couple of months before those payments start kicking in. And if that's the case, then, you know, how are we going to buy the groceries and pay the mortgage and do these sorts of things, right? So we've got to know, what is it that we've got to get done on the pension plan? If you have one, what about the 401ks and 403bs and those investment accounts that you've built over your career? What are we doing with those? Are we going to leave them there? And that's okay. Should the investments change? Should they be rolled over? Are there opportunities within them? One opportunity that we often find is when there is a 401k and people have contributed on an after-tax basis to that 401k, can we roll that over, take that after-tax money and put it directly into a Roth IRA? And it's a non-taxable rollover, okay? So there are ideas and opportunities built into these plans that you really want to make sure that you've paid really close attention to, because a lot of them you get one chance. Irrevocable decision. Pensions, you get one choice. One time only, you don't get to undo it. So make sure we get it right, right? This 401k opportunity, Roth conversion, you get one opportunity, one chance. If you roll the whole thing to an IRA and then say, well, I'll do the Roth after it gets over to the IRA, you don't get to do that anymore. Not the way I'm talking about, okay? So you want to have these things ready in advance, all right? The last thing that's kind of generalized to everybody, one last review of our benefits. What are we going to carry with us? What are those exit benefits available to retirees? We don't want to leave anything on the table, right? We've built long careers with our employers. We deserve to capture just about everything we can, okay? So these are the generics. Now, the reason that, again, we're putting this up front, there's obviously real life impact here, real financial impact, but this is helping with our psychology. Again, are we checking all of these boxes off so that first day into retirement, we're going into vacation phase, like Lyndsey talked to us about. Okay. We also impress upon retirees that the first 5 years of retirement is the most important, okay? Now, this has been studied many times over, very detailed and well quantified. I'm summarizing for you, okay? If you look at this chart, I like to boil it down into 4 quadrants. There, along our vertical axis, we have good investment results and poor investment results. Okay, that can have different meanings to everybody. Good investment results just means that the outcomes of your investments met or exceeded what you had hoped for, right? It doesn't mean that you beat the stock market. They take that off the table for a moment, okay? Because not everyone has to do that, all right? I like to ask people questions every once in a while, especially retirees. If you had more money, if I told you had more money than you could possibly ever spend in your life, would you ever invest in the stock market? And some people still say yes. And I look at them and I say, why? Tell me why. You have more money than you could possibly ever spend. You are gambling, okay? There's no need to. Now, most of us, especially me, will never be in that situation, so we have to manage appropriately. And we're managing towards good performance for what we need for our lifestyle. This is where it gets really specific to us. Poor investment results doesn't mean you lost double digits every year. It just means that you didn't achieve what you would hope to achieve. Now, along our horizontal axis, we have spending or underspending per our plan. Okay, that means that we held ourselves to what we had planned to do, and then the other is overspending per our plan. We spent too much money. Okay, now the horizontal axis, we have a lot of control over that, right? These are the decisions we make day to day. This is where our psychology comes back in. Okay, along the vertical axis, we have a little bit of control in this area, but the markets have more control than we do. Okay, so now let's run through the scenarios. The best outcome, obviously, is you have better than expected investment results and you spend at or under your plan. The opposite of that being you have poor investment results and you overspend. Now, in the best case scenario, what does that say? It says that you'll probably never run out of money. If you do that in the first 5 years, if you have better than expected or plan investment results and you spend at or under, you're probably going to be fine for the rest of your retirement. And this is studied and well quantified. The opposite impact within the first 5 years, if you are overinvested in the stock market and it sells off double digits and you overspend your budget, you will run out of money in retirement, okay? Now let's talk about the middle of the road. If you overspend in a year, but investment results are better than you hoped, you could be okay, all right? And if you have poor investment results, but you underspend, again, you might be okay. We don't know, okay? In the best case scenario, no adjustments needed. In the other 3, you really need to sit down and make some adjustments to your plan, okay? So in those middle of the road scenarios, maybe you need some adjustments, maybe you don't, but you should still be reviewing your plan. In the worst case scenario, some major adjustments might be needed. This is where people say, well, geez, do I need to go back to work? Well, maybe it's just you need to cut some spending for a while. Maybe you need to adjust your investments and your allocations accordingly, okay? So the first 5 years is extremely, extremely important to the long-term success, which could be 20, 30, or 40 years of retirement. With that, we're going to go a little more logistics with Lyndsey on the ins and outs of retirement.
When you're working, you have 2 paychecks coming in every bi-weekly, monthly, however it's split up. But when you do retire, you eventually start to get a bunch of little paychecks that come in on a fixed basis. Things like pensions, Social Security, maybe a continuing wages if you do pick up that part-time job, RMDs, and then we'll talk a little bit more about spending down taxable accounts and retirement accounts. So when it comes to a pension, you have 2 options. Take the lump sum, or you take an annuity payment and get a lifetime payment. A couple of things to consider with that is if you want to leave money to a spouse, you'll want to take the annuity version so that you can leave all of that to them. Social Security, there's definitely quantitative and qualitative ways to take it, and Jason will talk a little more after this about that. If you avoid taking it early, you get an 8% increase return each year. So waiting till you're 70, you're going to maximize your benefits. However, if there is a cash flow problem or a need, it's better to take it early. Spending down taxable accounts first, such as non-qualified assets like cash, Joint brokerages is good for tax-wise to let those retirement accounts grow, and let those IRAs sit and grow tax-free. The ins and outs and logistics. This is something that we work with clients, whether it be a monthly deposit, a lump sum annually, or extra distributions that are needed. I've seen clients take the annual lump sum in Q4 in December and withhold a good portion of it for taxes so that we can help you break even during tax time. Or if it's something you need monthly, we work with you as well to help ensure that you have that monthly income from your IRAs. Is there anything you would add to this, Jason?
Yeah, I think the important message to take away here with this, and this is another anxiety point we see in retirees, is how am I going to backfill that every other week paycheck or monthly paycheck that I'm getting now? And what we're saying is that can be flexible. You can manage it how you want to manage it. You can set things up so that you have monthly deposits to supplement other monthly deposits like your Social Security, and have some flexibility with lump sum withdrawals that may support, say, real estate tax payments or vacations or something like that, right? So this is one thing that tends to take some massaging in the early part of retirement, but then we figure it out from there. But you do have a lot of flexibility outside of that fixed stream of payments.
And of course, like Jason just mentioned, it is highly circumstantial. It's age. Maybe you retired early, maybe you retired later. Things to consider: cash needs for major purchases, travel, home, and home repair improvements, and also considering other debt and liabilities. Maybe you have a little left more on your mortgage and you want to get it paid off.
Okay. The last couple of topics, pretty major topics and questions that we'll do a little deeper dive into, but remember a lot of this is very specific to your situation. So the first one is, when should I take Social Security? All right, big question. What's important to understand is that you can take Social Security anytime between age 62 and 70. It is not just 3 targets. We get that question a lot. Do I have to wait? If I don't take it at 62, do I have to wait till my full retirement age? The answer is no. You could delay it, say at age 62, wait a year and say, oh, I changed my mind, and then go claim it. Okay? So you have a lot of flexibility, but it does not make sense to delay it past age 70, because they're going to stop paying after that. They're going to stop giving you that 8% increase that Lyndsey mentioned. So it doesn't make sense to delay it any further. All right. Some of the other things to consider with Social Security: it is a very tax favorable payment. It is not 100% taxable on our federal return. Up to 85% of it is. Now, when the program started, and I'm drawing a blank on the president, when they first rolled this out years and years ago, they said this is a payment and it will never be taxed. Okay, this is a retirement payment, it will never be taxed. Well, guess what? It's taxed, but not all. Most states don't tax Social Security. New York is one. There's only about 3 or 4 that do have tax on Social Security benefits. Okay. But let's get into some even more important considerations as it relates to Social Security. This is not only a quantitative exercise, and you're probably learning that about the things I'm covering today, right? Not everything is quantitative. There is a qualitative piece to Social Security, but let's cover the easy part, the quantitative first. It doesn't matter who runs it or how they run it. The math always works to wait to take Social Security as long as you can. As long as you expect to live to your late 70s or early 80s, it pays to wait. Okay, that's the math part of it. And the reason is that's a break-even point. It's the point at which, if you compare taking at age 62 and add up all the benefits you would receive over those years, and then you run it again at age 70 and add up all the benefits you would receive starting at age 70 out to, say, about 78 or 79. The crossover point is somewhere when you hit age 78 or 79, where it will have benefited you by waiting to claim it at age 70. Okay, you'll have received more from Social Security at that point. All right, so now you're starting to understand the qualitative side of this, because then there's the what if. What if I don't make it there? Okay, well, if there's a health issue, that's a real consideration. I had a client tell me once, we were doing his retirement planning, age 60, he was going to be out of there, and he lived to his word. He retired at age 60, And then we started talking about when are we going to claim Social Security, and he said, I'm going to claim it at 62. So there's no need for you to do this. The situation said that he could wait, all right, and it made sense to. He said back to me, my family genes say that I'm not living past 70. Sadly enough, he passed at 68. He was dead on, and we claimed at 62, and he knew it, okay? So there are real scenarios where you should be taking this early. Health is being one of them. Well, let's come back to quantitative because I will go more into qualitative. So we've covered the highest benefit you're going to get is when you reach age 70. There's an 8% per year rate of return every year you delay. That's pretty darn good. That's guaranteed. Okay, can't guarantee that on investments. Okay. If you take it early, it's a lifetime reduction. There is some spousal benefits in there that can move this calculation one side or the other. Okay. There's some claiming strategies left. Several years ago, 10 years ago or so, they reworked Social Security laws and they took away a lot of the fun claiming strategies we could utilize, with the exception of spousal benefits. If there's an age difference, depending on the accrued benefits between the two spouses, there is claiming strategies to claim one spouse's benefit, not the other, wait on the other, and basically it creates a higher level of benefit when one spouse passes away who has that higher benefit for the other spouse. Okay, so it's very personalized. The qualitative side is what we tend not to focus a whole lot on, right? Because it usually comes down to math. A lot of people are working on math. We talked about health. If health becomes an issue, it may make sense to claim it early, okay? And here's the reason why. And it leads to a lot of other conversations on the qualitative side. Social Security is a benefit for you, the person paying in, and potentially a spouse, whether they paid in or not, okay? And if the spouse did pay in, then it's guaranteed they have some accrued benefit. It is not a benefit that we can leave to anyone else. We can leave it to our spouse. If our benefit is higher and we pass away first, our spouse can get our higher benefit. Okay. Beyond that, it doesn't go anywhere. I want you to think about that, because if we look at our retirement financial picture and we've got assets we've accumulated over our working lives over here, and we've got this Social Security benefit over here that we can draw from. What if we had a real priority in our life to leave something to the next generation or a charity or something else? Okay? We can't leave Social Security, but we can leave this accumulated pot of money over here. Okay? So what I'm saying is, if that is part of your goal and part of your consideration, then maybe claiming Social Security early would work. Now, we can't guarantee 8% rates of return on your accumulated savings. But what will happen is, if you need money to support your cash flow, you have two choices, right? Social Security or this accumulated pot of money. And if you want to leave as much as you can to the next generation or a charity or something else, someone else, you could take Social Security early and what we call insulate your balance sheet, insulate your assets. Okay, that's less money you have to draw out of here because you're taking it over here. It also creates flexibility of withdrawals because you have now this accumulated pot of money over here that you can take larger chunks from and so on. It's there to compound. You could potentially earn 8%. You could earn less, but there's a lot of flexibility when you make that choice. Okay, so that's the qualitative side of Social Security. What are your long-term goals? What are your cash flow needs? And how do we get the most, not just out of Social Security itself, but out of all of our assets? And we have to consider Social Security and pensions and our accumulated capital as all one pot of assets. And how do we optimize and get the most out of all of it and make them work together? Okay. I think this is coming to my last part. So that leads nicely into now investment allocation decisions. Once we've identified all of our sources of income and how we're going to pay for our cost of living ongoing, one of the big questions we get is, do I need to make my investments much more conservative? Well, I think I kind of gave the answer earlier. If we are living in retirement 20 and 30 and 40 years, it's a really long investment horizon. Think back to when you first started saving, maybe in your early 20s or even your 30s. You were investing guns blazing. I'm going to put it all in the market, let it ride because I can afford to, right? I can take a lot of risk. Okay? I'm not saying you should do that now as you're approaching retirement. All I'm saying is it's not tuck it all in the mattress or bury it in a coffee can in the backyard, okay? There's some happy medium. Part of it depends on your reliance on your accumulated capital, on those investments. How much am I going to be pulling from those every year? So there's some rebalancing needed, but it's not let's just take it all out of the stock market and put it into bonds and CDs. That's not appropriate either, okay? Life expectancy plays a big role in this, as you're seeing, right? Because how long are we going to live into retirement? We also need to make considerations around the different asset classes. Never hand me a remote control. Find a way to change the channel. But one of the last big questions we get, I don't know, Ryan. One of the last big questions we get is, should I buy an annuity? Okay, this is a great question. Show of hands, I'm not going to ask you for details. How many think they know what an annuity is? Maybe some idea. Okay, an annuity is an insurance product. Okay, and the whole idea behind an annuity is that you invest some of your money and they're going to give you a stream of income, maybe for your lifetime. We've talked about this already a little bit today. We have some other streams of income that we identified. Social Security is one of them, right? A pension is another. So in a way, aren't we already building an annuity? Haven't we already invested money in an annuity? The government's just been taking care of it for us. So what I guess to answer that question is, again, it depends. How much safety and security do you want in your cash flow and guaranteed income coming in? But we have to remember about these annuities that you would go to an insurance professional and buy is that you're going to take some of your money that you've accumulated and you're going to invest it into this product and they're going to return money back on a monthly basis, okay? So what that does on the positive side, stream of income, guaranteed. On the negative side, it eliminates some flexibility. Okay, you've just taken a big chunk of cash and you've put it into this product. So it's not always a bad thing. If we haven't accumulated what we feel is a large enough Social Security benefit, if we don't have traditional pension plans as a part of our plan, a fixed annuity might not be a bad idea. And why do I say fixed annuity? There's really two types. There's fixed and variable. Fixed annuities, we like more. It's a fixed interest rate. There's no market exposure. There are reasons to have variable annuities with mutual funds and so on. You can do that on your own. You don't necessarily need an annuity to do that. Fixed annuities have gotten much more valuable these days with interest rates moving higher over the last year or so, a couple of years, versus say 2020 or 2021 when rates were basically zero. It made no sense to buy one of these fixed annuities, okay? So it's certainly something to consider if you feel more comfortable or have this need for a higher set of fixed income payments coming in to support along with Social Security or traditional pension. So just wrapping this up, investment allocation, it's something that has to be monitored ongoing. The more reliance you have on your portfolio over time, the more conservative it should get, but it doesn't mean on day one of retirement, it should go 100% out of the stock market. We have to still combat forces like inflation and other things, and we have opportunities to still grow our money at some level. And potentially a tool that we can use to make us feel more comfortable is an annuity if it's something that, you know, we want a higher level of coverage to cover expenses. Okay. All right. I think. Do you dare? Did I touch this? All right, I'm done. Oh, and then last slide. So I keep talking about life expectancy, and there actually is a chart. No. The last chart that I had up there was really just showing what the expectations around life expectancy are. Right now, we're kind of in this range from mid 70s to mid 80s is where life expectancy is today, but it does continue to grow out. If you look out a couple of decades, it is growing out to say mid 80s to mid 90s. So as we age, there is an expectancy with higher level of health care, and just us being more aware of taking care of ourselves, that we'll live much longer. So these are all considerations in the whole big plan. So with that, I'll turn it over to Lyndsey for health insurance.
When it comes to retiring, one of the two major things I ask are inflows, where's your cash inflow going to be, and secondly, health insurance. And it really is age depending on where you're going to get it. There's so many different ways out there. You could continue on COBRA coverage through your employer, or maybe you're continuing on your spouse's coverage through their employer. Or maybe you and your spouse are retired and you're not Medicare age yet, and you need to go out and get some marketplace insurance on the healthcare.gov. The one thing about marketplace is it is income based and family based. So you put in whether you want you and your spouse, or if you're factoring in any children. And the income level will determine your premium. If your income's higher, the premium's going to be a little higher. It's lower, and it varies per state. So that's something that each state has their own marketplace website that you would go out on and look for. Typically, PPO plans are the best because they're more flexible than HMOs. But if you are 70, where's the clicker? If you are 65, going to the next slide, and you're ready to sign up for Medicare, there's so much to consider when it comes to this. The initial process starts 3 months before your birthday of 65, and it continues on 3 months after. There's that window that you have to sign up. You'll sign up for Part A and Part B, and possibly a Part D drug plan. But when it comes to Medicare, there's two routes you can go. You can go the Advantage route, which is your typical co-pays, co-insurances, where you go to the doctors and you might pay a little copay up front. Typically, some vision and dental are included with this, but it's not always the best coverage out there, but there is a little something there. This is typically a more cheaper route. Maybe if you don't have a lot of health issues, you go this route. You're not paying a lot if you're someone that really doesn't go to the doctors very much. However, if you are someone who has, some medical problems, or you need to go to the doctors a little more for different procedures and medications and types of things, you might want to go the traditional Medicare route. This route is more of what Jason likes to call the Cadillac of insurance, or the Ferrari or Porsche or whatever. This Medigap route is you'll pay for a supplemental plan. You'll pay your Part B premium, which is standard across the board, and it increases each year. I believe this year it was $174 monthly. And then you buy a separate drug plan to help cover your drugs. This route is typically you pay more upfront, so you're paying a lot more annually. But when you go to the doctors, you're not really paying anything out of pocket. So different things to consider here. If you were to start the Advantage route, say you're healthy and you might not want to spend all of this money, into the original Medigap policy. You go to the Advantage route, and then down the line you want to switch to the higher level of coverage. You can do that. Sometimes there is a little underwriting that comes with it, or they might kind of look into it, but you can switch over time. It's easier to go down than it is up, but it has been done. And this is something that we look at on an annual basis when open enrollment happens. When open enrollment happens, this is something that we go out and we help shop for our clients. And we not only look at your personal needs when it comes to your health decisions and your health, we look at the numbers, and we look at the quantitative, and are you getting your bang for your buck? Is there anything you would want to add to
I
it?
think you covered it. Okay. Oh, sure.
All right. Well, thank you, Jason and Lyndsey. And with that, we will get to the fun part where you all get to get involved and and ask away at Jason and Lyndsey. So if you just want to raise your hand, we will go to the folks here in the room first. I have Amelia in the back monitoring the chat for any virtual questions that come through. But with that, we'll open it up to you guys for any questions that you have based on what you heard today. If you want to talk in a more one-on-one setting on something that is a little you don't want to share with the whole group, Jason and Lyndsey will be available following the open Q&A session to talk one-on-one with you guys. So with that, we'll open things up. Yes.
Did the Medicare age, was that 65 is when that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just want to make sure I heard that right.
Yeah.
Now, there is a nuance there. People ask us all the time when they approach 65 and they're still working, do I need to sign up for Medicare? Some of that depends on the size of the employer you work for. Small employers, it's sort of a check with the insurance to see if you need to sign up for Medicare. If it's larger employers, you can continue on with the insurance that your employer provides you. Thanks, Frank. And you do not have to sign up for Medicare. And what we're really being asked is, do I need to sign up for Medicare Part B? Because that's the part that costs you. The premium Part A is for free. Okay, so as you approach age 65, if you're going to continue to work, if you're a small employer, under 20 employees, I believe the number is, you have to check with the insurance. If you're with a large employer, you do not have to. But we will occasionally sign people up for Part A. It's free. It gets you in the system. It gets the application. Okay.
Other questions for Jason? We'll start with right here.
I want to revisit what you said earlier about Social Security benefits. It was my understanding that one would automatically get, if a spouse died, and then would automatically continue to receive their benefits. And that's the case.
Okay, so just so everyone hears the question is, when a spouse passes, is it automatic that you're receiving the spousal benefit? Is that, just want to make sure I'm getting the question.
Yeah, you said something different than what language said.
So the way the technical calculation works is that if, let's say that you and your spouse are both receiving your own benefits, okay? If you've accumulated a benefit that is greater than 50% of the spouse's benefit, you're on your own benefit. When the spouse passes away, if their benefit is more, you still get yours, and then they top it up to equal the full benefit, right? You do get the higher benefit, the spouse's full benefit. Where there tends to be a question is whose benefit's higher, right? Is it yours? Is it theirs? That sort of thing. But your understanding is correct. If you're receiving, while you're both alive, you're only eligible as a spouse to receive up to 50% of their benefit, but upon their passing, you get 100% of their benefit, essentially.
What if one spouse did not get when the other spouse?
If they're not collecting Social Security, then you should apply for Social Security for spousal benefits, probably. Again, there's some nuance to that as to why you may or may not, right? Because even as a spouse, if you're going to collect the spousal benefit, but you're under full retirement age, there can still be a discount to your benefit, right, if you claim early. But spousal benefits, and we've seen this before, spousal benefits can technically start for receiving your deceased spouse benefits. They can start as early as age 60. Okay. And then you can run the spousal benefit out to, say, age 70. Let the spousal you can run that out, then claim your own. Let your own benefit accumulate. There are still some claiming tactics in there. Back to your base question, the answer is yes. You will continue to receive spousal benefits at some level, but once it's passed, then you do get the jump up. Do we have another question?
Yeah, my question was just clarification on when you said if you're employed and you have health insurance, you don't have to apply for Medicare at 65. But what if you're covered by your spouse's health insurance?
So the question is, because I had made a statement earlier, when you turn 65, if you're on an employer's insurance, you don't have to sign up for Medicare, with some caveats. The question was, what if you're on your spouse's insurance through their employer? It's always good to check, and here's the reason why. Because some insurances, some even employer-provided insurances will have that carve out that says, no, you have to go sign up for Medicare, and then we're going to be the supplement to it. Especially in a spousal situation, we've seen that more so than if you're an active employee and it's your insurance. So it's call the benefits and double check. We've seen it both ways where they say, we want you to sign up, we'll be the supplement, or no, you're fine, we're just going to keep covering you as long as the spouse is working.
I was busy focusing on something other, so this is, I got to understand it correct, is that, I'm collecting Social Security right now, I go to full retirement age, and my wife, will collect it at 62. So when I pass, will she inherit, can she inherit what I made?
Yes, depending on when you pass and when you claimed, though, will determine the amount. But the answer is yes. Yep. She will get the higher of her calculation, whatever that equals, or your full calculation, whatever that equals. So we've had, the reason I have to, make those disclaimers is because if you've claimed it early, as an example, or spouse has claimed early, there's still these discounts in play. Okay, this where it's not full retirement. You said you claimed a full retirement age, basically then protecting 100% of your benefit for her upon your passing. Yeah.
We have one more.
I have a question about that. If your spouse retires, it's X amount, and then, and I retire, mine is less. Is it half of what is it? And I'm confused on what you were talking about.
Again, it depends on timing and calculation. Okay, so when you enter into it, I'll try and paint a basic example. Both spouses being the same age. Okay, one spouse has a higher accumulated benefit than the other. Okay? If the one spouse claims their benefit, who has the higher benefit, whatever, at 62 or whatever, they're going to collect their benefit. When the other spouse goes to claim Social Security benefits, Social Security says, well, you have your own, or you can get up to 50% minus the discount because you're claiming early of his. Okay, so there is that. It's the 50% compared to your own. So where we've seen some maximization is where the spouse with the higher benefit waits to claim. The spouse with the lower benefit claims their benefit early to gather at least some Social Security, knowing, and this, it all is how the math shakes out, so that they know that there's some protection when spouse passes away, or you can ante up your own benefit to the 50% level.
Anything else from our in-person attendees? Okay. We do have two questions that were submitted online. The first question is, how do I avoid large IRMA after beginning required mandatory IRA withdrawal?
Okay, how do we avoid IRMA? Yes, IRMA, IRMAA. All right, so acronym lesson. Does anyone know what IRMA stands for? Okay. Income related Medicare adjustment, and I'm leaving out an X, so close. Thank you. Okay. So basically all this is if you have too much income, your Medicare premium's going up. And it's structured similarly to the tax tables, right? If you understand income taxes, your first chunk of money is taxable at 10%, your next chunk of money is taxable at 12%, and so on. IRMA works similarly in that if you make this much within this range, you're going to pay this premium. If you make a little bit higher, you're going to pay a higher premium, and so on. Okay, that's IRMA. So the question is, how do we avoid that? Especially when we have to start taking required distributions from, say, 401ks and IRAs. A lot of it is being proactive. It is running calculations of pulling that income sooner than you have to, and it's hard to believe that I'm saying that, I know. But how do we pull that income out earlier before we get to Medicare so that we can avoid IRMA potentially, all right? Now, what are we going to do with that? Why would we pull early? Well, there's actually a couple of reasons. Avoiding IRMA is one, the higher Medicare premium. The other could be a Roth conversion strategy, okay, where we decide we're going to pay taxes now because when we get to required distribution age, our tax rate's going to go up. We're going to pay higher taxes on more income coming in. So we get a double benefit if we do this planning up front, where we are converting some of the 401k, the 403b, or IRA over to a Roth IRA, paying taxes now. That way, we're required to pull less from those tax deferred accounts when the time comes, and potentially also saving taxes and saving Medicare premiums. So there is a calculation, there is a strategy there. That's the main one. Can you think of any others?
No, but I have seen, so IRMA is basically, it's income level, and there's different phase out ranges. And I have seen where they have upped the premium on a client, and then that client, you look at their prior year tax return, prior 2-3 years, and they're really not at that income level, that higher income level that the Social Security is saying. So what you do is you can get a form, it's like SSA 40, and you can appeal that to make your premium go back down. So there are ways to do that.
To appeal the higher premium.
Mm-hmm.
You have another online question. Aside from Social Security, assuming no pension, what is a reasonable drawdown from my managed investment?
Oh, what a great question, because this has actually been debated and calculated over decades. So a few of the rules of thumb that have been out there, maybe some of you have heard them. In retirement, we need to plan to cover 70 to 80% of our expenses. Has anyone heard that one? Yeah, okay. That really isn't considered a rule anymore. How about this one? We can withdraw 4% of our accumulated capital every year safely. You've heard of that one before. Okay. There's actually a new quantitative method that's been studied that looks at higher withdrawals early into retirement, because we understand that as we get towards the middle to end of our retirement, we're not as active. Okay, that's what the basis of this is. Now, if you're going to go down this path, you have to live it, right? Unless you go back to my 4 blocks, right, and you test and retest your retirement. But there is an idea out there, or a method that says you could pull more than the 4%, maybe even up to 6 or 7% of capital to support the years that you're more active, with the understanding you're going to have to lower that capital drawdown later into retirement. Okay, so there are scenarios. But I would say, for a simple rule of thumb, start with 4%. And why 4%? Well, 4%, a lot of people say, well, but I can earn 7% in the stock market. If that's the foundation for your retirement investments, it goes back to, if you had more money you could possibly ever spend, why would you put it all in the stock market? Number one. Number two, why would you build a plan around receiving the highest, or the on average highest 100% investment in the stock market? You shouldn't do that, right? So 4% is a balanced investment approach that allows for continued compounding of your investments over time, to a point to where it actually starts to switch when you factor in inflation and some of these other moving parts, where compounding will stop and you'll actually start hitting principal a number of years down the road. So they've studied this, and that 4% still sort of a general rule, even though there have been case studies to develop drawing higher amounts early and having it phase down later.
That 4% is based on wanting to keep the money perpetually there and not really decrease it.
Early on. early on. Over time, you still see this switch to spending the income so that it's not compounding as much, and with less compounding comes to eating into principal.
So wouldn't that go with the policy of leaving something for children?
Correct. Now, if you have this goal of leaving something for the next generation, you have to decrease your expectations around withdrawals or decrease the need for withdrawals. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, because what I was saying is that figuring out how to maintain it year over year, that came to the figure of 4% drop.
Mm-hmm. But then the thing that's been studied within the math is the impact of inflation. And when I say that, I want people to understand. So how many have heard the Fed's inflation target recently? That's been all over the news. Does anyone want to take a guess what their inflation target is? It's 2% is their inflation target now, okay? We're a little bit above it. 3% has been sort of like this long-running assumption in inflation. Inflation is one of the major financial forces that we have to deal with. I say that about compounding and I say that about inflation. And here's the reason why. The 2% target and the 3% long-term marker that is used in a lot of assumptions are totally false, okay? And here's the reason why. The two main spending categories in your budget are probably food and fuel. Now, fuel's a big category. You put gas in your car, you got to heat your home, you got to be able to turn on the stove, you got to heat water and so on, right? That's fuel. Food, eating out, groceries, things like this. Those historically, and I studied this, personally studied this over 10 years, short time frame, but 8 years out of 10, those two categories exceeded the long-term target of the 3%, what we've used in, and it is well above 2%. Okay, so the things that impact our budgets the most are inflating much faster. Then, when you factor in medical costs, which have inflated at least double in some years, those two areas, we often use in our planning, we use a standard sort of 3%, but then we take anything medically related and we always add more, 2, 3, or 4%. That's where that 4% now becomes, I'm drawing down my capital. Once I start inflating these real categories where I spend my money on, those are going to eat into, that's going to eat into your principal if you assume that build up much faster than the Fed's target or what real guidance sort of has been long term.
What's a comfortable rate? 4% is maybe not. Maybe you want to use more for vacation.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have the life expectancy of 25 years, retirement might be as high as like 6%.
It could be in the early years. That's what they're restudying this to say, what could it really be in the early years when you're more active and have more physical capability to be active? It could get to, say, that 6 or 7% level, understanding that it's got to come back down at some point, whether you like it or not, right? That's sort of like the disclaimer. You don't get a choice. Well, my body hasn't slowed down. I'm going to keep going. No, you're not.
What I don't think you touched on at all is the need for long-term care.
Oh, yeah.
So either catastrophic or
Mm-hmm.
just, skilled nursing or whatever,
Yep.
long-term care stuff that can really knock.
It can derail a retirement plan. Absolutely. So long-term care. I'm going to do this without slides. So we're going to wing it. Long-term care, some things that need to be considered. One, when do you want to buy long-term care insurance if that's something you're going to do? Between the ages of 50 and 60 is the most cost-effective. You can buy it earlier, but you're spending a lot on premiums and making a big bet that you're going to need it, okay? You could buy it after age 60. It's going to get a lot more expensive, okay? It's already expensive. So that's really kind of the key 10 years that we've witnessed where you really want to, if you're going to do this. before we even shop insurance policies, the first thing we do is, do you want to make sure you are leaving something to the next generation, or to a beneficiary of some sort? If you don't, you might not need to buy the insurance, because that's what the insurance is there for. It's to protect your assets. However, giant disclaimer, long-term care insurance will provide benefits for 2 of the 3 stages of care, okay? Where a lot of us think of Medicaid. Medicaid will cover us in a nursing home. It will not cover us for in-home care or skilled nursing care or assisted living, okay? So when I think of this, I think of long-term care on a continuum. There's the in-home care. I want to stay at home. I want to bring people in, stay there as long as I can. There's assisted living. I can't really do it all on my own, but I'm still fairly independent. Then there's full-blown nursing home, okay? Long-term care insurance will pay for those, all 3 stages. Medicaid covers the last stage only, okay? Those are key considerations. When to buy it, why do you need to buy it, and the stages that you're really covering. The last thing I'll mention on this, when it comes to long-term care, comes back to life expectancy. Life expectancy in enhanced care is still extremely short. You're talking 3 years or less in most cases, and there are statistics around male and female and when you enter and what age. Usually if people are entering around their early 80s, they're staying in this type of care for 2 to 3 years. There are certainly many examples of people staying in care longer. I'm just giving you sort of the general national statistics, okay? So when you think about it, should I spend money on this insurance? There's also another statistic in addition to how long we might need it or use it, and that is, do we even go into any type of care beyond our health insurance? If we become critically ill, okay, we utilize our health insurance, we don't utilize long-term care necessarily, okay? So it absolutely is a factor. It can derail a retirement plan. There are still a lot of statistics that say that many won't use it. There are some that say that you will. Should be a factor. How do we factor that in? What's the family history look like? Do you have good genes that you're going to live a long time? Then we maybe want to put more emphasis on long-term